Well, hello and welcome to another episode of A View from the Top. I'm Adrian Cropley. A View from the Top is a regular podcast from the Centre for Strategic Communication Excellence, where I interview some of the world's leading communication professionals as we explore their career journey. Today I'm speaking with Priya Bates, who is one of our profession's most accomplished communication professionals over a long and varied career. She's currently president and founder of Inner Strength Communication, based in Toronto, and has held many senior roles in her work, very much in that internal comm space. She's been in many volunteer roles, particularly with the International Association of Business Communicators, and I've absolutely thrilled to have known Priya for many years. And she is an IABC fellow, and quite rightly so, given the work that she's been doing. And in the last couple of years, although being an ABC, got certified as a strategic communication management professional with the IABC. Priya, it's great talking to you face to face, and I know I'm in your home country, even though we're in a different city. We're in Vancouver.
That's right.
But it's great to have you here. Welcome.
Well, I'm pleased to be here.
So I just wanted to take a little while to explore your career and the journey that you had. You know, did you, as a little girl, say, I want to be an internal communications professional, or did you want to be something else?
My dad still doesn't know what I do today. So when I was a little girl, I didn't know that internal communication or even public relations existed and was a job you could do. Growing up in a South Asian family, everybody was saying you should be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer.
You can put a tag to that culture.
Exactly, you could. It actually, that was what they expected, but I couldn't stand the sight of blood, so there was never any opportunity. I had no desire to be a doctor. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I got my degree in science.
Oh, in science, right.
Yeah, so Bachelor of Science in Neuropsychology, the brain and behavior, which was a really, switching from all the biologies and going into something that was more humanities and psychology, which is what, made a lot more sense to me about people.
Did it make sense at the time that this was going to be something you would absolutely be needing to use?
No. I'm actually really pleased at how much of the studies in science, because I'm still a scientist a little bit at heart. I still love the research, which puts me at an advantage in this world where most people came from journalism backgrounds and love the art. Yeah. I always say I like the science and the results. Yeah. And a science project or a science research report is a business plan.
Yes.
It's exactly the same thing. So I didn't have to train myself about looking for the results and creating hypotheses and having to measure results and prove what we did actually worked or didn't work. That was already ingrained in me as a scientist.
Right.
I just knew I didn't want to work in a lab
my
entire life. Right?
But you knew it was going to come into play somewhere in there.
I found it interesting. I didn't see my passion because most of the work in science that I saw was by yourself, working with objects, and I was inherently a people person. I was somebody who volunteered for organizations. I enjoyed seeing the results and the strategies come to life, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. Wow. So I took the time after I graduated to work in customer service. Okay. And that's how I started, and trying to figure out where that was going to take me. I had a degree that I didn't think I could use for anything. and a friend who went to the University of Western Ontario with me actually took this program at a college called Humber College. Yeah. And it was a certificate program in public relations. And she told me how much she enjoyed it. Okay. And I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. I'd love to check that out. And like most people who went to the interview, they always hear, why do you want to be in public relations? Because I like to work with people. Because that's all I knew. Yeah. I didn't really know anything else. But I haven't looked back since. I did that really quick program. It was a 1 year, 10 years, 22 courses on all the foundational elements.
And then it all started making sense. This was
and you felt like you found your home.
Yeah.
You know, there was something about it that every piece of the variety, the fact that you can choose to go any which way you wanted to, that every day would be different. Yeah. I knew I found the right place, even though as a kid I had no clue.
So some of those, thinking about some of the earlier jobs that you did, because we've all been in these careers where we get shaped over time by the work that we've been doing. So tell me some of the earlier jobs that you did, or the jobs that you've done through your career.
I started out thinking, because of my science degree, that I wanted to get into the pharmaceutical industry, that I'd apply the communication I'd learned to some sort of science-based organization. And my step in at the time was with a pharmaceutical marketing research firm. Right. And it was, I really honed my research skills in that organization. But very quickly, my first job, that was what I'd consider a real communication job, was with the telecom industry, and this was just as technology started taking off. And I joined an organization that was going through tremendous change. My focus was dealer communication coordinator, and it was working with the organization to communicate to its dealers who were selling cellular phones. Right. And it was at a very, very transformational time in Canada for mobile technology. They were moving from analog to digital. So there was an education that had to take place. They were bringing in new players into the market. So 2 new players were joining the competitive landscape. So there was an incredible amount of education that had to happen with all of the store owners and what the way they called value-added resellers in the industry on what were all these technologies. Why would you bank on one or the other? And I got to educate retailers on price and product and promotion and new technologies and all these things. And it was really great, because I thought I was having I could see the impact that one of the things I had offered to do was actually create what was called the digital handbook. Right. And it was because it was so new. The technologies were so new. And so we just made it really basic so that everybody had it. And because so many of the people who worked for the large organization I worked with at the time were moving to new organizations that were coming into the market, they'd phone me and say, Priya, we just saw your digital handbook at the competitor's place, because they were using it to understand the technology.
Isn't that a moment of pride?
I really love that. It became something that people would take a look at to understand what was happening with the market in Canada.
So you do realize we were running parallel lives, because I was working in the telco industry exactly at the same time, going through all of that when I worked for Ericsson in Australia. So what was next for you after that?
I ended up spending about 12 years in the technology industry. I started out focused on sales, marketing, and corporate communication. So corporate communication was a piece of what I did. So it was a really generalist role. And in a time when we really needed to help our employees and our sales forces understand what was changing. Because technology was going through that boom and then the bust. And we had to teach them how to sell differently and value different things. And so my connection to the bottom line and the sales of the organization was very real in the roles that I got to play. But it was when I was with a computer products distribution company that part of my role, a little sliver of my role, was internal communication. And I worked with the executives in terms of what messaging they had to provide. There was a new brand that was rolling out, and we had to really educate the sales floor on how to think differently and sell differently and create programs that would have direct influence on their behavior. And there was this light bulb that went off for me. And that was it must have been about 20 years ago, where I thought, oh my God, we can make a bigger difference from the inside out than I can creating a press release. It was just a epiphany. And that was the moment. My next job after that experience, which was a really successful experience for that organization, was a dedicated internal communication role at Compaq Canada. And Compaq was acquired by Hewlett-Packard. A year into that role, I ended up taking on the internal communication role for HP Canada afterwards. So again, but what I noticed was my common element was I was always walking into organizations, being the first internal communication professional in those organizations. So I got to make it up. Luckily, I had some great leaders who helped me and listened to me because they didn't know what I was supposed to do either. So it was really great to be able to experiment. And maybe that's the scientist in me again. But it really helped me build some practices and make mistakes and try new things and learn from the experience and it was really great. But we took that what I was very, very proud of was that Compact Canada through that merger, the HP Compact merger was announced, the acquisition was announced September 4th, 2001, and then a week later was September 11th, 2001.
Wow. So
the world changed, and then for those employees who didn't know what was going to happen over the next year, it really impacted them, emotionally and physically and mentally and everything. And and we ended up, but because of the connection we had created through a really strong internal communications program and incredible leadership at the time, we actually got our best ever fourth quarter and first quarter results during that time of change.
Wow, that's great.
When we should have seen disruption. And we did that because of leadership and communication. And that was really, really exciting.
That would have solidified it for you, really, isn't it? You go from, I often call it, it's almost like being a nun that is called up. They've suddenly got the direction, they've got the calling, and the internal comms was very much like that, and has been for a lot of people like you who are pioneers in internal comms that suddenly went, we've been called to do this in organizations, and there's something very, I don't know, getting very Zen now, but very spiritual about the fact that you have been called to do something that's vastly important. You've then connected with, my gosh, my study suddenly makes sense to me, and when that was coming into play. It all kind of lines up and goes in.
Exactly.
And then you did some other, internal communications, leading organizations. Loblaw was one of them. And
so I led internal communication at HP and Compaq, and then Loblaw Companies Limited. And for those of you who don't know who they are Canada's largest private sector employer.
Wow.
And they have 200,000 employees, and those employees are everybody from cashiers and butchers and bakers to truck drivers to architects and lawyers and real estate developers. It's a real gamut of skills that are out there. But at the end of the day, we really wanted to align everyone and what they each individually did to a purpose, and the transformation they were going through at the time, which was an amalgamation of companies that had been acquired over several years that weren't actually working like one company. And so it was a real privilege to be able to work with them and take them to now since 2009, they've been a top 100 employer in Canada. They've consistently been there.
Something to be very, very proud of. And you got to learn many languages working with such a diverse group. Even though we're all technically English, there's lots of languages when you're working with a diverse group like that. What happened after that? Was that when you started your business?
I always dreamed of having my own business. And it was actually when I went to Loblaw, I was actually going there on a 1-year maternity. I was leaving a full-time role to go to a 1-year maternity leave position at Loblaw, thinking that it would, it's a great employer. If they like me as a contractor, they may become a client when I start this dream of having my own business. And I got sucked into the vortex, I always say. But it was, everything happens for a reason. It was the right role at the right time. I got to do incredible work. I got to learn a lot in the role, working for an organization that was that big. Got to fine-tune a lot of my philosophies and test my strategies. But I did then probably a few years in. I was there for 6 years. Halfway through that, I started saying, my dream has always been consulting.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, there was a little part of me that said, I'm going to be turning 50 soon. And I think I was like 46 or 47 at the time. And I thought, if I don't do it now, and I went into it and I said, if I leave now, try consulting, and if it doesn't work out, I still have time to go and apply and come back in-house. Like, that was seriously where my head was at.
Yeah.
That I was, not that I was setting myself up for failure, but I was putting myself in a safe space to go in and try and say that I tried.
Absolutely.
Say that I, gave it my best shot, and if it worked out, awesome. And if it didn't, that was okay too. I loved my corporate career. I just always felt like I needed to be doing something that was different, and and it was really elevating internal communication in a bigger way than I could do delivering for one organization.
Brilliant. And I guess no regrets doing that now.
No regrets. I mean, and I'd be lying if I said it was completely smooth sailing and easy along the way, right? All the things people told me about it taking time took time. They all came true. But you have to follow your heart and do the work that you love. And today I can't imagine doing anything else. Yeah. But that being said, I think that, when it's time to make changes. I think the rules have changed.
Yes.
I think that people are afraid to say, I tried and I failed. Yeah. Maybe I just tried and had a new experience and I learned something about myself, and then I moved on to a new experience.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be more supportive of people and encourage them to take the risks and take the chances and be okay if it doesn't work out.
Absolutely.
Right. I think that's our tolerant society, that we give ourselves a chance to take the risks and make the mistakes and see it as a valuable time, not something that is like, I don't think failure exists if you learn from it.
No, not if you learn from it.
Right.
And I tell you what, you are so inspirational to talk to, and I would really love, as we get to the close of this, because I could talk to you all day, but it would be really good for you to impart some words of advice for up-and-coming communication professionals. What's one of the things probably you learnt in your career where you'd say, if I was to give the one piece of advice to somebody coming through of how they'll make a difference in their organizations, what would it be?
I think a few months ago, I started really changing my language and realizing that the challenges that we have are less about capacity and capability than they are about courage and confidence. Mm. And we've, Adrian, we've been having the same conversations for the last 25 years. And I've made progress, you've made progress. Individually, a few of us thought leaders around the world have made progress, but we haven't moved things in a big way to where we know is possible. And I want communication professionals to first have to believe in themselves and their value before they can actually deliver and get the results from that they expect. And part of that comes from meeting the global standard and understanding it and taking certification, being courageous to go out there and say, I belong to a profession that matters. I'm not just the communicator. You know how I feel about that, right? Because everybody is a communicator. Yeah. My daughter is a communicator. My leaders are communicators. My dog is a communicator. Yeah. Right? And everybody can claim to be a communicator, but not everybody can claim to be a communication professional, and they definitely can't all say that they are certified communication professionals. And so I challenge people to take that standard, and it will go a long way in helping us believe in our profession and who we are and how we can deliver. And then the other piece of advice is absolutely do the work that matters. Yeah. And that means measurement. Have your goals up front. If you're simply creating communication to check a box, stop. Yes.
Sage and wise advice from Priya. And look, as I end it there, I just want to say, Priya, you had your ABC, your accreditation a number of years ago. You chose to go and sit for your strategic communication management professional. You've got your SCMP now. Great advice to get people to do that, because you didn't have to do it, but you're leading. You're leading by example, and you've always shown great example. So thank you, Priya, for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Adrian. I always enjoy speaking with you.
It's always fun. And thank you, everybody, for joining us with A View from the Top for this episode. Look forward to catching you all next time. Thank you.